So this isn't about winning a senior 8 because we've all won the senior 8s. We've all done it, you know. It's about something more than that. And the people that are here have made a commitment to something more than winning the senior 8.
Go!
This story is about a group of friends. A group of friends who had all been involved in rowing since their early teens, but had never had any real success. That was until they joined the University Rowing Club in Galway, NUIG, and met Tom Toohey. With Tom's help, they became the most successful club in the country. Some of them even made it all the way to the Olympics in Beijing. Over 12 years with Tom, there are many great stories to tell, but this story is of their final year with him, and the road to try and win the biggest prize in Irish club rowing one last time.
We were under no illusions. We knew that UCD were good, they were strong, and in the race itself, they took off from the start, and they were just in a frame of mind that they weren't going to be beaten. We didn't do anything terribly wrong, but we were never really in control of the race, and UCD were good value for their win. We were all gutted not to have won in 2011. Some people before the race were talking it up as, you know, a 3 in a row. We didn't win, and things like that happen in sport. But I have a memory of walking home from Hughes's Bar on the night we had lost the senior race championship. We'd come back to Galway. We'd had pints, and there was good spirits. Everybody was disappointed, but I was walking home, and I got a text message that Tom sent to everybody, and the gist of it was, he was writing without his glasses. He apologised for the spelling, but he said, "Thanks guys for a really good year. We had some fantastic training." He said this group has something special, and that we'll, despite not winning, we'll have a night out to celebrate or something special. So I suppose that just shows that Tom understood what sport was about. You have to enjoy the slog. You have to enjoy the training. There's no guarantee of success. Of course, you enjoy the success and you milk it for everything it's worth. But it's not the end of the world when you don't win. That's life. You get your knocks and you have your good days as well. We started with whatever the best raw material that was coming through from the local clubs was. Kind of hand-picked a couple of guys, headhunted a few fellas, cajoled a few fellas, bullied a few fellas.
I had kind of heard through Nigel and Johnny and some of the other lads that were rowing at college time that he wanted me down at the rowing club, and I wasn't really interested, to be perfectly honest. But Tom came up to the deli counter anyway, and I kind of saw him from a distance, and I went into the back of the behind the deli into the freezer and just waited a while until he went away.
Why?
I don't know, I just maybe just kind of knew that he was looking for me to go back rowing. I just didn't want to have that conversation at the time, but
So you're hiding in the freezer?
I was, yeah. I was hiding in the freezer, and my work colleague at the time, I can't remember her name, but she came in to me and she said that there's a man by the name of Tom Toohey who's looking for you at the reception, or at the deli counter, and I just replied to her and said, tell him I'm busy, I can't go, unfortunately. And he said that he's not going anywhere. I kind of knew that he was being serious, so I had to go out. How are you, Tom? You're coming down rowing tomorrow morning, and that's it, and I want to see you down there. And I was kind of telling him, no, I'm not really interested. And something that I kind of admired about his insistence that I would, it was like, I don't know, it was weird. I was kind of nearly humoured by the way he was at the counter,
I can't remember a day where Tom wouldn't have been on the water or been down in the club before everybody else, or to make sure the crews were out there day in, day out. And as I said earlier, if he wasn't there, he was on the phone to you. How did this spin go? Who was doing what? How did the boats go? What was the fastest boat going out there? And that certainly probably rubbed off on us. So when you see your coach being religious about attendance, being diligent with work, always being there, then you see that vested interest that he has in you, and then you want to reflect it back that you don't want to miss a session because if you let the coach down or if you let the team down, and you see that's a principled value that's really, really, really important to the coach.
I remember Tuesday morning. On Tuesday mornings, I have a busy teaching load. I have 4 classes in a row from 9 until 1. But in between classes, I pop up to my office to change, materials and restock. And for some reason, I just looked at my phone at 12 o'clock, so I had 1 hour to go. And there were a number of missed calls from Sean Carolyn's. And I rang Sean and I said, "What's up?" And he said, "Tom's after having a stroke." And I said, "Oh, okay." Tom had a stroke previously and bounced back spectacularly. So, I kind of thought, okay, stroke, Tom's fit, he's well, he's disciplined, and if anybody's going to beat something like that, it'll be Tom. So I didn't think much about it.
We very quickly found out that it was very, very serious. It was very difficult to see Tom. He was up in the ICU, tubes coming out, but the doctors were saying he was lucid. So I can just remember, kind of telling him, as he would have always told me, at the start of an erg test or something like that, "Tom, I hate to see people stop on an erg test, because whatever you do, keep going." So I can remember saying exactly the same words to him.
Yeah, I was around Galway. I actually I got to visit him. It was strange because he could fully understand what I was saying, but he couldn't really respond. He could only respond by opening his eyes wide. Because Tom had actually been calling me that year to get me back home, but I told him I wasn't too sure. So when I went in, I told him that I was going back and that we need him back on the water and that I'm back and everyone else is back, to give him some bit of motivation. When I was talking, Tom was responding, and at one stage a tear went down Tom's face, down his eye. It was really weird. Like, without him talking, you could really feel that he appreciated me there. He probably thought that he'd never see me again, but I got to go in and visit him. It was very, very sad. It was also nice to actually visit him.
The moment I knew that Tom wasn't going to survive, despite being the fighter that he was when I got a call from Breed. It was a Friday afternoon, and she said, "Tom isn't going to make it. It might be next week. It might be 2 weeks." And I went in and I saw him, and just chatting to Breed and the family afterwards. Their language was, they were kind of making preparations for, for Tom not being with them anymore. And when I came out of the hospital, I remember ringing some of the lads, and I said, "Guys, if you're around, touch base with Breach and try and see Tom, so that you can say goodbye to him." I think we knew that was it.
So Tom's death was a massive blow. I mean, I met Jason maybe 2 days afterwards, and he was after coming out of the theatre. I didn't realise Jason was very religious at all. And he said he had been in there just praying for him, and he was bawling, crying.
The last conversation I had with Tom before he passed away was on the phone and driving back up to Dublin, and he was plotting out how we were going to go back and beat UCD, because we'd obviously lost them in 2011. And the last conversation he had was around how are we going to get Alan back in the boat? How are we going to get him down? And get the whole crew back together and make sure that we turned it around.
Tom, we had great times with Tom on and off the water. He was a great person, fantastic coach, but I suppose he was more than a coach to us, especially for so young guys in the crew. He would have been like a father figure to the young guys, like such as myself. So when I first came up, he would have made sure that everything was going well at college, and if you were sick, he'd call you up and make sure you were okay, and like it was that extra few steps that a coach wouldn't take, and that was very nice. So Tom really appreciated a guy who worked hard and who dedicated himself, from start to finish, and I think he taught us good work ethic. As long as you were dedicated, as long as you committed to the crew for the year, and you were in it for the year, you were committed to that crew. He appreciated that, and he promoted it.
Now, tributes are being paid today to the late Tom Toohey, one of the best known and most successful rowing coaches in Ireland, who passed away earlier on. A native of Ballinrobe, Tom is best known as coach to a succession of NUIG teams that won both national and international honours. Here's Ralph O'Gorman.
Tom Toohey died this morning after a short illness. He was 56. He is an enormous loss to Galway sport. Tom Toohey coached NUIG rowing crews and was highly successful over an extended period in bringing national titles back to Galway. He competed and won in his day. He prepared oarsmen for World Cup and Olympic regattas. And we remember him particularly for the transformation of the Galway University's approach and participation in the Wiley Cup. That's the competition for Irish universities rowing. Not only did he compete in Wiley Cups, his crews won repeatedly, dominated the event, and positioned successive college crews as the one to fear and the one to respect right up to the present day. Tom Toohey was a winner. He achieved. The void will be huge. May he rest in peace.
And that evening, or it might have been the following evening when most people were around, we met up in the Dewdrop Inn, Miles Lee, for a few pints. And it was both really, really sad, and yet it was very, it was kind of almost celebratory. We were sharing our Tom stories, and we were doing the imitations, and we were kind of talking, shooting the breeze, and I remember stupidly saying, well lads, we can't walk away from rowing and everything that we got from it and everything that Tom gave to us on a loss to UCD, so let's just throw in our cards now and say that for 2012 we're going to win the Senior Race Championship for Tom.
Over the course of the few days after the funeral, everybody stayed in contact, and while the emotions were heightened at the funeral, there was talk at the time of putting a boat back together, bringing everybody back together and doing something in memory of Tom. But because emotions were high, we didn't really want to push it too hard at that stage and commit. So we decided then to reconvene in January and see where people were at.
If we're going to do this, we're doing it right, and we're going to come together and set out our goals and have a really core group of people who are going to do it right and have no kind of bullshit along the way.
We had Sean to step in as our coach. Sean is good friends with Tom, and he had a huge pressure on his shoulders too, because he was coming into a crew that had been together for the bones of 10 years and would have had a good relationship with Tom, and I suppose he had big shoes to fill.
Well, I'd been approached a week or 10 days earlier by Cormac and Alan, who arrived here at the house one night, and they gently asked me would I coach, and they mentioned that John was on board, and I said yes pretty quickly, I suppose, because I knew them all from junior days, and they explained to me what they were about and what they wanted to achieve and what they wanted to do by coming back rowing again and racing the 2012 season. And then the meeting was called for a week or 10 days later.
At the meeting, we needed to review 2011, look at the mistakes that were made and turn them into improvements that we can make in 2012.
There's certain things that we had, certain errors we had made the previous number of years, and we'd failed to correct them, and we really knew we had to nail those and get those right if we were going to win.
Few guys the wrong side of 25, coming closer to 30. And rowing is a tough, hard game, and there's a lot of young guys there snapping at guys' heels, and an Irish Championship is very hard won.
27th of January, and I am just packing up my gear bag, which you can see down here, and which you can see sprawled over my bed, for my first weekends rowing in about 2 years.
Physically at Christmas, I think the group was at a low point. I think people let themselves go a little bit. We were all older as a group, and everybody was starting training a little later than they probably should have been. But we knew as a group with our experience what needed to be done. We needed to do a lot of work in the boat, on our technique, on our length.
Arms, body and slide. It's important not to fudge them, because then we just don't get our full functional length to be able to deploy from the front end to the reef. If we don't make it every single time, arms, body and slide.
We needed to do a lot of gym work on the ergometer, do our own weight training, watch our diets. There's many different aspects to getting ourselves into good shape. I think we helped each other a lot through this, and one point I made earlier on is that myself and Alan and Cormac used, on the ergometer on the rowing machine, used to take photographs of the screen after our training, send it to each other that evening, and I suppose we used to try and compete with each other even though we were based training in different locations around the country.
The strengths were pretty obvious. The group was a very experienced group, had been rowing together for a long number of years, and more importantly though, they were focused, very dedicated. but they're also very hard. Most of them have been through some very, very hard races, including winning the Senior A Championship on 2 occasions, and probably the closest races that has ever been recorded. The big worry, I suppose, was the logistics of a number of the individuals on board living outside of Galway, which was a new phenomenon for some of them because they were starting their careers and starting working for the first time.
I think there were a number of risks. The first risk primarily, we were going back to honour Tom's name, and if we failed to do that, we would. That would just point us out as failures. We had, and plus the fact that we'd lost in 2011, losing again in 2012 would mean that we really are busted flush. The emotional consequences to losing would have been, I think, quite significant. The fact that we were scattered around the country, that was a situation we never had to deal with. We had to review that year and see where it was we made mistakes. And I think we just had to go back, look at what had led to success, what had given us success before, competition. We brought competition back into it, real competition back into the training, especially on the water. And that's something that we kind of let drift out of the game a little bit in 2011. And we were able to identify that was something that we had to reintroduce. And we just went out there and hammered each other with pairs.
Cormac, it is the 24th, possibly, of February, and 25th of February, and today is Erg Test Day. How do you feel about that?
I knew we should never get you back involved.
The 2011 champions from UCD had dispersed, but a new challenger had emerged in Queen's University, Belfast.
Well, Queen's would have been based in the one location. They were all apparently all at the same university, so they would have had a good structure to their lives. They had just appointed their second full-time coach, who was brought a lot of experience both in coaching and in management to their project, and they hadn't won the Senior A Championship in 50 years, so it was a thing they wanted to win, and there was a lot of focus put on it.
Queen's had come second behind NUIG 3 times in the past 10 years. On 2 of those occasions they had lost by just 1 foot. The first head-to-head with Queen's in 2012 was the Erne Head of the River in Enniskillen.
It's the longest time trial event in Ireland. It's more than 6 kilometres. It's a challenging course and big bends. So it's long, it'll test your fitness. It's about 20 minutes of rowing. So we didn't know whether we had enough fitness in the tank to be able to win up there. But we went out on the day. And coming down the track, we actually had a good row. We got off quick. There's after the first bend, there's a long straight of about 1,500 metres, and we had a really nice run down there, and we were going really well. Queens were ahead of us, and we could see that we were kind of catching on them. And then there was a number of big bends, and it kind of levelled out a bit, and I think our fitness began to let us down a small bit, and then we kind of rallied for the last third of the race. We had a 6 kilometre race, 20 minutes of rowing, and we won by just 6 seconds. So it's a second per 1,000 metres. So in the context of a 2k race at the end of the season, it's 2 seconds of a difference. So nothing really.
Right, Cor, first regatta of the year, Cork regatta, or skim regatta.
Yeah.
How are you gonna do?
How are we going to do?
You gonna win it?
I'd like to think so, yeah. Hopefully.
What would be your prediction, like for distances and placings? We'll do it before and after.
I'm going to give the GAA. I'm going to give my GAA answer here, right? My stock GAA answer.
Go on, yeah.
No, look, we wouldn't go out and we respect everyone in the race, and we'll go out there and go and give it 100%, and we'll see what happens. You wouldn't underestimate anyone really in this field, because there's quality across every boat there now. So
okay, yeah.
Just go out and give it our best shot and see what comes of it.
Yeah, like Queens won the intervarsities yesterday.
No, they did well. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. No, they're a great crew, and we respect them.
The 500 metre mark. I'm going to give it to Queens, but only by the number plate over Granulale, half the canvas back to Trinity. Granulale are charging up now, and it's level between Granulale and Queens. Absolutely nothing in it.
Queens look like they're leading. Queens have it. Queens look like they have them. Good sprint by Queens. Queen's going to like winning this. First time they beat Galway in quite a while.
Well, I suppose we recognised that Queens were a real threat after Skibbereen. As James said, we had been a little bit complacent, and when push came to shove, we worked hard to get ourselves into a position where we would normally win a race from, and nothing happened. We were well beaten, so we realised that we were more or less back to the drawing board. Queens were a serious crew. They wanted this as much as we did. They were training probably harder. They deserve their win.
We went to a regatta in London then in order to get some additional competition, and the standard of rowing in England is much better, so we wanted to go there to see, to test ourselves against some of the English clubs, the English universities, and it was a complete disaster. We were shown up really badly, lots of things went wrong all at once, and it was a very unenjoyable, poor experience.
I think we just weren't at the races. We hadn't done enough speed work. We just weren't really ticking, and overall it was a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, we have taken part in these regattas before, and we've been successful. We've rowed well, and we've come away on some occasions with medals. And the experience we had at this regatta was, probably one of the worst rowing experiences I've ever had in my life. I don't think I've ever been that far behind in a race.
So 2007 was when you started rowing, and September 2007. And how did you feel about rowing with a group of guys, some of whom started rowing in 1994?
It was definitely strange. Considering I was born in '93.
Yeah.
So, and even from just being in the Bish, you'd see the group like rowing, to see them going up the river. You'd be like, those guys are just unreal. Like, who are they?
So you wanted to be a part of the group?
Oh yeah, definitely.
When we finished the race in London, and people were all giving out to each other, what was your view on that?
I'd come off the water thinking that was a good row. We just got pumped, like. Yeah. So I wasn't really sure what to. I was kind of a bit confused because after rowing with this group of people that I'd seen rowing up the river, thinking that they're something like godlike almost, and then to have a race like that, it was kind of not really sure how to describe how I felt.
This pressure thing came through because there was times in here where guys were killing each other. Like, we'd be on the water and guys were at each other's throats, if the boat wasn't going well, and guys were giving out each other. And ironically, that was the stuff that I remember thinking Tom would really enjoy this, because Tom loves when people get angry, because I suppose it shows him that everyone really wants to win too,
I think it's probably as close as I've ever seen us to disintegrating. I mean, it was despair. We were absolutely hammered by an embarrassing margin, and we were faced with the stark reality that we might be past it, despite the end. Are we capable of honouring what we decided to do, of carrying it out? And there was a real question hanging over us, based on the performance we put in.
Yeah, and then we came home and we found out about Paul.
Go ahead.
I felt good. Like, I was training away, like up in the cadets mess, like, and getting back into shape. And I was tipping along then. When I got back up to the curve, like, I was training hard, like, that time.
It's about April, is it?
Yeah, and the air scores were starting to come down.
Yeah.
It was all going well. We lost Skibbereen, but
not by much.
And then it all came to a standstill pretty fast.
Thanks for the occasional farce in there, Corey. Just
breaking the tension.
Yeah. So everything's going well, erg test, and then what happened?
Got a bit sick there, apparently. I don't feel sick yet, though.
You don't feel sick? You don't look sick?
Bit of a blip, but sure, look at be grand in a few months.
There you go.
No better man.
No better man.
Paul was a huge loss to our group. Back in January, I was down in the gym in NUI Galway training, and I was doing sit-ups. I looked up and I saw Paul, and I was just thinking to myself, yes, we have Paul back, because he's such a big guy, he's so strong, and his attitude towards his approach to everything is so admirable. And like, having him around gave me the confidence that I felt maybe we lacked in 2011 for us.
Gibbon was always our strong man. He was the guy we looked to as kind of our benchmark about strong. We kind of always felt that when we had Gibbon in the boat, we had that sort of world-class strength that changes crews from being, decent to being that next step up.
We'd never won a senior race without Gibbon. So this was something that we had to get over.
The weekend before Gibbon had told us all, he had come down having trained for about 6 weeks, came down, did an air test on the Saturday, beat us all by 10 seconds, and that in itself was embarrassing for the rest of us. And then next morning we went out to Annadown and back, which is about 28 kilometres, went for breakfast after the usual situation. We all went off, no one was any different, and then the next morning we get this email that says, guys, I've been diagnosed with cancer. And my first thought was more around, how the hell are you after doing that score 2 days ago if that's the case, and what's wrong with the rest of us?
What he brings to the group as an athlete that I felt we'd lose when he wasn't going to be now in the crew. He actually brought the group from the launch, so his kind of no holds barred attitude to training and attack that he was giving us from the launch, which he'd normally give us from within the crew. So in a way we didn't lose as much from that perspective that I thought we were going to lose.
What he would do to be in that boat and what he would do if he was in the boat, kind of it brought us all together as well, and it set a certain tone, the tone that he has in training around how far you're willing to push yourself and the kind of the levels that we expect of ourselves.
And the intensity even became the intensity of the training became more focused, and the attitude became very, very. We narrowed the attitude, and it became very defined. They knew exactly where they were going and what the opposition was going to be. And we also knew that we were going to get together in a camp with no interruption for a number of weeks before the championship. That was going to be very, very important.
Attention please, ladies and gentlemen, due to arrive at cancellation Galway shortly. Please have all your luggage ready and ensure that you have all your personal belongings with you. Always return.
I'm just passing through. I'm a mayfly. I can stay with you for a while. Rip the house plants up, break the china, give you all my love, say goodbye. And I'm sad.
1 minute already now. Just commit to this piece. One piece at a time. One stroke at a time.
Someone's house who
okay, now here we go. We got a man up, guys. It's gonna be fucking shite here now. But if it was like this in Cork and we got UCD out one side, Queens on the other, we want to trust ourselves that we're better than they are, that we front up better than they would. Here we go now.
Let's have us, so that the weight of the world can.
Good hard work.
How'd you roll yourself, man?
I was when I came down, I actually didn't think I could row at all. I was so tired after yesterday, but surprising what the body can do when you're tired.
Talk about the margins, tiny margins, half seconds, milliseconds that separate crews. That's what separates the crew on the day, but it's what's happening 2 months in advance of that separates the crew in reality.
I felt Tom was a large part of our group, always going through all of our training, particularly into the summer months. And there was one day when we were out rowing, and on the bank there was a guy out walking his dog, but the guy was dressed exactly like Tom. from a distance, we all looked and said, that looks like Tom. And we actually got into pair. We started backing it up towards him to get closer so we could get a clearer view of him. And I suppose you could look at it as a message from Tom, like to let us know he's watching over us or he's keeping an eye on what's going on. I know it's just a mad coincidence, but it was like his identical twin on the bank. Even his mannerisms, they were the exact same. And he was watching us doing power strokes in the pairs, I think.
Would he have been happy with what he saw?
No, because Alan was losing.
I felt much more part of it from when I knew I was going to be in the crew. I knew I was going to be part of it. I could feel like I felt a lot more confidence in the crew too. After having spent the amount of time with them, I just felt like this is definitely something we could do.
The last row we were going to have on the card, which was on the Wednesday evening, Dominic was going to be down from Dublin. Everybody was going to be here. We were going to be travelling to Cork the following day. The 4 was rolling on Friday, the 8 on the Sunday. So this Wednesday was just the fine tune, the dress rehearsal. And typically what we would do on that Wednesday, that last session, is kind of a full race warm-up and then a little chunk out of the race. And our habit was to do a start at 70 strokes, which is about the first third of the race.
10 more rest strokes. Let's just. I really want you to try and focus, try and imagine us on the track down in Cork and our senior race championship, there for the fucking taking, and it just involves us working together, backing each other up and going for it. In 2 strokes.
And we were really motivated to do on the River Corrib what we hoped we would be able to do in the race. So on the Wednesday night we did our first third of the race, and it was blistering. Everybody was just so up for it. We were all in the zone. The boat was quick. It was fully committed. Everybody was really enjoying it, And I remember just saying at one stage that, and I shouting and like really being just in a kind of in a zone or a bit of a trance. And I said, if Tom could fucking see this, he'd be rubbing his hands. And it was just an image or memory that I had of Tom, that when things were going well, Tom would he'd be in the launch and he'd let the steering wheel go, and he'd be rubbing his hand, and you just see a grin and you knew when you saw that reaction from Tom that what he was seeing was exactly what we needed to do, and he just knew that we were in that place. And I thought that we were delivering that for our last session on the Corrib, and if Tom was sitting in the launch, that's exactly what he would have done. And when we came off the river, we said, right guys, that's it. We are ready. We've managed the preparation to perfection. We've done exactly what we wanted to do, what we said we were going to do, what we need to do. And it was Evan that said, let lads save that to memory, and that's going to be our buzzword, our password on the day, Wednesday night on the Corrib. And if we reproduce the first third of the race like we did on the Wednesday night on the Corrib, we will be at the races.
It was definitely a big pressure here. Like normally when you race championships, there's a big pressure on you. But then the fact we had to do it for Tom on top of that, it just put more strain on the whole crew.
One of the things Tom used to always say to us was, I want the warm-up to be perfect, and if it's not perfect, pack it up and come straight back in. So we boated and we headed up towards the start.
As a coach, once you push the boat off and it goes for a senior crew down to another 13, 14 crew, you're finished. The coach can do no more. He has no hand active part in the race. You're sitting 2,000 meters away from the action, so to speak. So the minute you push the boat off, it's just big time nerves. It just hits you, all at once.
I can remember rolling up the fours from when we left the beach, on past the finish line up towards the start, and then crowded at the finish line there. And before we got doing our own turn up going up, it just sent the hairs on the back of my neck, shivers down my spine, any of the other terms you can use. Like it was completely surreal. And that was kind of a bit difficult to deal with as well, because that started to push the emotion up.
Did some of the warm up before going through the starting position and through the bridge and beyond, and boat was going really well. We were all focused and nobody was excessively stressed.
Yeah, the rest of the warm up was flawless. Like the rowing was was pristine. There was nothing that we could have done differently, nothing that I would have wanted to have done differently.
Pointed the lads just to look straight down our lane, which was our straight path to the finish, and I said, guys, just have a look down the corridor of destiny. And there was a kind of a really nice resolve in the boat. Everybody was really up for it. Nobody on the edge, nobody fraught, nobody stressed, nobody panicked. Just in the zone in the right way. The last fine-tuning thing that we did was start in 5 strokes. So it's just the way you get the boat up off the standing start position, and we did it almost going straight for Queens. It was sort of brazen. It was a bit defiant, but it meant that we weren't afraid of showing it. We weren't holding our cards to our chest for fear that we'd give away any secret. We had no secrets to give away except that we had done what we needed to do. We were happy about our preparations, and we were right up for it.
I think Don made the point just before as we were sitting the race to start the race about that we're all lucky to be there, and that there's people who give their right arm to be there as well.
Called out to the starting position. We were probably first on, straight ready. What we practiced was watching the umpire's hand, and even before the go, as soon as the hand started to move, we were all going to go in sync.
We went off very high tempo. All the crews were together till the 500 metre mark.
Stroke for stroke Queens. Completely dead level.
We got into our rhythm, our kind of easy speed, as we like to call it, get our rhythm going and just kind of eat up the ground.
But ourselves and Queens after 500s kind of took away from the pack.
And we made a big deal about not coughing anything up. In the previous years, we'd squeaked wins, having clawed back an advantage given the other crews. So at no point in the first 500 metres, 750 were we down. We were level all the time, and I was kind of relaying that. Everybody knew it, but I was relaying that. Lads, we'd coughed up nothing.
But the race itself almost became a box. It was like a box ticking exercise. Off the start, excellent start, done. Level at the 500, done. Level at the 1000, done.
So we weren't led. We were going through our checkpoints. We were looking at time elapsed, the rate count on the clock, where we were relative to Queens, because by 500 metres it was a 2-horse race. So never led, but we weren't moving away. And one of the big calls that we'd agreed to make was that on 1,000 metres we were just going to remember Paul and say Paul Giblin. What he always kind of hammered home was belief. We've trained hard. We believe in what we do. No fear. So on the 1,000 metre mark, we just went through one of our gears and we began to make a bit of an inch.
We were in our zone. We knew where we were in terms of our effort, and we knew where we could go. And when Cookie hit the button at 1,000 metres, it lifted and it started to move.
And I remember having cross-referenced where we should be time-wise vis-a-vis certain marks down the course. And I hesitated, and I looked at James, and James knew what my confusion was about. It was that we had reached the 1,500 metre mark so quickly. And James also said at that point, he said, "I'm moving." And I think we might have made a call about, right guys, this is our tribute to Tom. Let's do something here that he would be proud of, that he would relish.
Crossing the line, I felt, I don't think there's a word to describe how I felt. It's probably the best feeling ever.
Hair is standing on my neck now, even thinking about it again. It was fantastic. The project worked. What we set out to do in that room in January was fulfilled. We succeeded. We paid great tribute and honour to Tom, and we did it for ourselves.
But every step, every stroke of that race was, you know, it was like a masterpiece, and it was like our kind of opus that we could put out there and say, this is what we've done for the last 7 months and maybe for years. This is what we can do when we put ourselves through the program, when we prepare ourselves, when we work together to achieve our common goal.
John and myself felt this huge responsibility towards the athletes, you know, to win, and there was also a lot of emotion in the background which the crew wouldn't have been aware of. You know, there were people there who had travelled down specially to see it, and there was a lot of emotion there, and it was important that you know, it was vital that we won it.
Yeah, the feeling is just it's almost impossible to describe. You've come off the huge high of when you cross the line, and just the outburst of emotion. It's pure magic. It really is pure magic. And
as a tribute to Tom and the legacy he had left us, and we really wanted to make sure that we kind of, whatever happened to the group after that point, but that we had won the Senior 8 and finished that kind of era of NUIG off with Tom on a high point.
People looking at the podium, I was on the extreme right of that, and Paul was on my left hand, and Paul Gibbon is just a colossus there with us in the build up to the race. He was in our heads during the race. He was part of the execution of the race plan, and it wouldn't have been a complete lineup of who had contributed to the win without Paul being there, and there he was.
Blue sky gleams for all its sins, looking at their gorgeously by us. July people come and go, looks like another perfect day, yeah. Just to see your striptease show, July, please try your best to stay. And a mongrel begins to part at a wino in the park, and his owner doesn't care, 'cause he really is there. Oh my, July. July face bombs in my mouth, paper out my everywhere. I can't lie on my pocket trout, so I sit back in the easy chair. And a woman of middle age licks and thumbs another page, and she brushes off the dirt from her greyhound skirt. And all the boys go! Oh my, July. Oh my, and a baby sucks its thumb to the sound of a steel drum, and a fountain water gush through the pit. la la.